Right, Peter, IT replacing AV?
Yes and no. I think the procurement method for AV is now an IT space. The design of AV is very much an AV space, but the dependencies on IT are enormous. We've had IT in-house in Australia since 2012, and every project we've done in the last probably 3 to 4 years, we've been asked to do the IT as well. And I'm not talking about infrastructure necessarily. I'm talking about how it works on the network. So there is a little bit of a push towards conversion networks, and the AV sitting on conversion networks causes some problems and some headaches because it's not really been done before to the extent that we're doing it now. So we have IT in-house to help that process go forward, and as a result of that work, we're getting more and more IT work coming through. So we're actually ramping it up quite quickly.
So how much AV is on the network, and what sort of problems you get?
Everything's on the network.
Everything?
Everything, yeah. We've got an installation going in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. Every single ceiling speaker is a Dante PoE ceiling speaker. Every single one. So
How do you maintain performance and quality
in that particular case, it's just for background music, so it's not particularly, it's not a sort of production space. But it's the way the market is going, and there are more and more of these products coming into the market. So as that happens, the demand goes up, the quality will go up with it as well.
Well, interoperability and the things having been an IT journalist, I think of certain things on networking, even though we talk about it, and so-called standards and what things work and what don't. I mean, how and knowing the AV industry isn't exactly the most interoperable thing on the planet. How do you cope with interoperability and compatibility and able to work together different pieces of equipment?
I'm definitely not the right person to answer that question because I'm not an IT specialist. But needless to say, it is one of the challenges that is, I suppose, to some extent, opened the door for us to get in there and help and get stuck in. And I think IT people have always been reluctant, I think is probably the best way to put it, to let the AV boys in. But when you've got an AV company like ours with an in-house IT resource that speaks their language, those barriers come down quite quickly.
I don't think we helped ourselves either with our IT colleagues, because in AV we used to deliver signals across network cabling but not using network protocols. So we kind of made it look like we were deploying across the network, but we weren't really. And so at that point, IT people took one look at it. It wasn't standards based, it wasn't IP traffic, and they said no. And so we've been on the journey for 10 years now to actually undo all of that and try and work our way back into the confidence of those teams, because we're now much more standards based. So talking about interop as well, I think we're finally getting to a place where we're settling in on a few standards. Dante is a great example for audio, which is across a number of manufacturers. And so we've moved from a place even 5 years ago where interop, not talking about video conferencing, but talking about actual devices communicating, was much more of a challenge. But like I say, we seem to be settling in on a few key protocols that span multiple manufacturers, which helps.
You do a lot with education, don't you? So education are usually pretty savvy, and I always maintain they're well ahead of the corporate space, because because of what they have to do, keep their skills up to date, and they seem to be much more, because they're facing the music every day of the week, aren't they? And what they do and get through is their challenges are just enormous, aren't they? How they keep ahead of the game, I will never know. It's amazing.
Yeah. So we have been delivering converged networks into higher education for 5 or 6 years, and we're still not in a place with most of our corporate clients where they're doing that. So they're definitely pushing forward faster. There are security questions. Lots of our corporate clients, for example, are banks or professional services companies where the integrity of their network is almost top of their list above everything else. That is the case in higher education, but maybe it's a couple of places down on the list, so it gives them a little bit more flexibility to have a play. And higher education, in my experience, have always been keen to start pushing on with new things earlier, possibly. So the converged network I'm talking about at one of the universities was the first AV over IP deployment of its kind at the time. So that's a great example of where higher education is, like I say, keen to start to push the boundaries of what can be done earlier.